Good morning. My name is Julian Dawson. I'm a member of BridgehouseLaw Vancouver, and with me is Kia Vandeluz. Our presentation today is entitled Survey of Economic Migration to Canada, and is intended to be an overview of the legal issues and possible solutions that may confront foreign investors who wish to migrate to our jurisdiction.
One of Canada's accolades is that the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, ranked Canada as the most attractive country for entrepreneurs in 2017. One of the metrics used in ranking Canada so well is its marginal effective tax rate, or METR for short. This rate is an estimate of the level of taxation on new business investment and takes into account federal, provincial, and territorial statutory corporate income tax rates, as well as other features of the corporate tax system. METR also takes into account other taxes paid by corporations, such as capital taxes and unrecoverable sales taxes paid on capital purchases. The METR is particularly useful for making comparisons among nations and sectors of the economy. As a result of the tax changes announced by Canada in 2018 in the Fall Economic Statement, and the important tax changes announced by the US in December of 2017, Canada's average METR is now the lowest in the G7 and below the average of the OECD.
Just dealing with foreign tax relief, in general, taxpayers residents in Canada may deduct from their Canadian tax liability a credit for income or profits tax and withholding tax paid to another country. The foreign tax credit is calculated separately for foreign business tax and foreign non-business tax on a country-by-country basis. Corporations are taxed by the federal government and by one or more provinces or territories. The basic rate of federal corporate tax for 2020 is 38%, but it is reduced to 15% by an abatement of 10 percentage points on a corporation's taxable income earned in a province or territory, and a general rate reduction of 13 percentage points on a corporation's fully rated taxable income. Provincial and territorial tax rates are added to the federal tax and generally vary between 10 and 16% of taxable income. The federal government and the provincial and territorial governments may apply lower rates of tax to active small business earnings and earnings derived from manufacturing and processing. Further, Canada has enacted legislation to implement the Multilateral Convention to implement tax treaty-related measures to prevent base erosion and profit shifting, which I'll refer to as the MLI. The MLI entered into effect for any particular covered tax treaty in accordance with the provisions set forth in its entry into effect articles. The MLI does not operate to modify the application of Canada's tax treaties at the same time. For the MLI to come into effect for a particular bilateral tax treaty, both Canada and the other party to the treaty must have listed the treaty and ratified the MLI. Further, the impact of the MLI on any particular tax treaty will depend on the notifications and reservations made, as well as certain positions taken by the parties to that treaty under the MLI. The rates generally reflect the lower of the treaty rate and the rate under domestic tax law for dividends, interest, and royalties paid from Canada to residents of various treaty jurisdictions. Certain exemptions or conditions may apply depending on the terms of the particular treaty. Canada signed, though not necessarily ratified, such treaties with approximately 100 countries, including many European countries, China, Japan, Chile, Turkey, Tunisia, Venezuela, Russia, and Nigeria. Canada gives investors preferential market access through 14 trade agreements to 51 countries with nearly 1.5 billion consumers and a combined GDP of 49.3 trillion US dollars. The CPTPP agreement, along with customs and free trade agreements with the European Union and South Korea, makes Canada the only G7 nation with free trade access to the Americas, Europe, and the Asia-Pacific region. The Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership gives companies operating in Canada preferential access to one of the largest trading blocs in the world, including key markets in Asia and Latin America. Canada has not only the largest in terms of numbers, but also the most elaborate and longest standing skilled labor migration systems in the OECD. More than 1 in 5 people in Canada is foreign born, which is one of the highest rates in the OECD. 60% of Canada's foreign born population is highly educated, which is again the highest share OECD wide. According to the OECD, in 2017, most immigrants to Canada were selected using economic criteria.
The federal and provincial governments of Canada have entered into agreements whereby provinces may nominate candidates for permanent residence in Canada if the applicant has the intention to settle and establish themselves in a particular province. These programs incentivize investing in a province and starting up a business by creating a streamlined immigration process to receive permanent resident status for those candidates nominated by a province or territory. These programs do vary by province. So if we take BC, for example, BC's provincial nominee program, Entrepreneur Immigration Stream, has these following basic requirements. It requires a personal net worth of at least $600,000. This includes cash, assets in bank accounts, fixed deposits, real property, other investments, etc. The net worth must be legally obtained and may be under the spouse or common law partner's name. The net worth must be verifiable if invited to apply. Further, there are post-secondary credentials requirements or equivalent experience as an active business owner-manager with 100% ownership of the business for at least 3 of the past 5 years. The eligible experience as an active business person is as an owner or manager and or senior manager. You also must submit a business concept that demonstrates an active and ongoing management role in the day-to-day operations of your proposed business plan and the creation of at least 1 new job in the proposed business BC business. Further, there is a personal investment of $200,000 Canadian dollars in eligible expenses. Eligible registrants receive an invitation to apply to the BC PNP program under the Entrepreneur Immigration Stream. Eligibility is determined on a points-based system, which is allocated depending on the information you provide to the program. The highest scoring applicants are then invited to apply. And if you are successful, you are in an optimized position to acquire permanent residency status and eventually also permanent residency for your dependent family members. Though there's also an entrepreneur regional pilot program, which is designed to help meet the community's economic development needs and encourage investments outside of urban areas. These requirements do vary not only by region, within the province and by region, and these do require a visit to the region to which you apply. In terms of immigrating to Canada, some benefits include the political stability. In 2019, the World Bank ranked Canada 2nd among G7 countries in terms of political stability. Also, according to the World Economic Forum, Canada has the soundest banking system among G7 countries and ranks 6th in the world. Third, Canada is seen as the second least corrupt country among G20 members and 12th globally. BC and Canada are taking active steps to increase its reputation as a leader in combating money laundering through its transparency register for corporations and another one for land ownership. The Registry of Corporate Beneficial Ownership in BC is a new program, a new act by the BC government, and this is to increase its capacity to combat money laundering and other financial crimes. All private BC companies are now required to keep and maintain transparency registers of beneficial owners. These transparency registers are unavailable to the public and are only accessible at a company's records office by tax official, law enforcement, certain regulators, and current directors of the company when access is requested. Beneficial owners are people who ultimately own or control a company directly or indirectly. The specific tests for who qualifies as a beneficial owner are found in the Business Corporations Amendment Act of 2019, where they are referred to as significant individuals. We also have a land transparency register, and this is established under the Landowner Transparency Act, which, while received royal assent in 2019, establishes, it has not launched yet and will launch in fall of 2020. It establishes the first Canadian public registry of beneficial owners of BC property. Similar to the current regime of disclosure of legal ownership of real estate in British Columbia, certain beneficial ownership information reported to the new registry will be available to the public. The Act requires corporations, trusts, and partnerships which currently own or buy land to disclose their beneficial owners. The disclosure requirements will apply to all parties who fundamentally own and control land. A portion of the information collected will be made publicly searchable through the Land Title and Survey Authority, which is the current authority that administers the BC land title system. Upon application to register an interest in land, a transferee is required to file a transparency declaration, which discloses whether or not the transferee is a reporting body. And these reporting bodies include relevant corporations, trustees of a relevant trust, and partners of a relevant partnership, which currently own or buy land. On a federal level, the object of the Proceeds of Crime, Money Laundering, and Terrorist Financing Act is to detect, and its regulations, is to detect and deter money laundering and terrorism financing. The risk-based approach requires reporting entities to conduct assessments of their exposure to money laundering and terrorism financing risks. Currently, the PCMLTFA and its regulations only require financial entities, securities dealers, money services businesses, and life insurance companies to ascertain beneficial ownership of their customers. There are new regulations which will require certain designated and non-financial businesses and professions to obtain and take reasonable measures to verify the accuracy of beneficial ownership information on customers who are entities. These entities include corporations, trusts, charitable organizations, among other ones. And they're required to keep records of this information and the measures that they've taken. Some of these regulations entered into force as recently as this past May, and others are not yet in force but will be coming into force in the coming years. Now, in addition to BC and Canada's extremely stable political and financial environment, BC is an incredible province and Canada is an incredible country. Among its many accolades, the UN Human Development Index consistently ranks Canada as one of the best countries to live in, and the US News and World Report of the best countries in 2019 ranked Canada #1 in terms of quality of life. We also have 3 cities that rank consistently among the top 10 to live in across the country, being Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto. In BC, we also have excellent healthcare services. Once you're enrolled in the BC Medical Services Plan, you and your family have access to excellent healthcare services. People in BC earn competitive wages and enjoy a very high standard of living. As previously mentioned, BC is home to many different cultures. This creates a diverse and vibrant society that welcomes students, visitors, and new British Columbians from all over the world. British Columbia is the most ethnically diverse province in Canada. Almost 30% of British Columbians immigrated to BC from another country, and just under 1/4 of the people in British Columbia are a visible minority. And when you move to BC, you can continue practicing your religious beliefs and cultural traditions. As a member of an ethnically diverse community, you can also experience the many different cultural heritages of other people from around the world. BC is also home to a large range of different opportunities and industries, including agriculture, construction, forestry, health, manufacturing, and technology. Further, There are very low crime rates in BC, and effective regulation makes BC one of the safest places to work and live. And finally, there are excellent education opportunities. The University of British Columbia and Simon Fraser universities are world-renowned institutions. UBC is a global center for teaching, learning, and research, and is consistently ranked among the top 20 public universities in the world, and is recently recognized as North America's most international university.
So I just would like to touch on the circumstance that arises when a foreign investor has emigrated to British Columbia or elsewhere in Canada. He or she will find a legal system that allows him or her to plan effectively in order to control their wealth and to manage it. And that's not just through estate planning tools such as wills and trusts, but it's also through a consideration of whether to make inter vivos gifts and how to optimize tax advantages that do present themselves. Many of our clients, when they emigrate, incorporate and hold their businesses through a corporate structure, which is always advisable. But one of the issues that I see often in my practice is that there are differences and disputes that arise from people's expectations of how things are to unfold, especially when it's dealing with family businesses. And so to deal with that circumstance, we recommend that foreign investors, once they've incorporated, they enter into a robust shareholders agreement, which clearly defines the rights and expectations of each share class, what each shareholder may expect from the operation going forward, and how disputes are to be resolved and regulated in the future. And that's one thing that often gets overlooked. So dealing with a shareholder agreement, not only can you ascertain who gets to vote to manage the business, but you can also determine how dividends are to be distributed and what rights will attach upon a liquidation. So in terms of a takeaway, there are a multitude of different legal means for investors to effectively manage and protect their wealth once they migrate to Canada. They will find that Canada is a welcoming jurisdiction for not only immigration, but for foreign investment. They will find a friendly business environment with a strong and robust legal system, and that there are effective legal structures in place on how companies can regulate the investments that they make. Now, changes are coming into force dealing with ownership transparency, and this is something that does set British Columbia apart from other jurisdictions, but I think that is something that is going to come to the forefront generally.